Meet Pastor Timothy James Rogers, a man whose life is a testimony of unwavering faith and divine purpose. Born on March 11, 1982, in Blytheville, Arkansas, to Bishop T.J. Rogers and prophetess Tallianne Rogers, Timothy's story is one of destiny. As the youngest of 16 children, he was affectionately called the Golden Child, a name that would later reflect his extraordinary journey in both ministry and music. Raised in a household where faith and worship were at the heart of everything, Pastor Rogers was immersed in the spirit of the church from an early age. His upbringing shaped him into a dynamic preacher, passionate gospel singer, and a gifted songwriter. With a deep-rooted foundation in faith, Pastor Rogers' love for music was nurtured by both his parents, his father, a bishop, and his mother, a prophetess who inspired him to use his God-given talents to impact lives. Not only an anointed preacher, but also a dedicated husband and father, Pastor Rogers married Sharetta Plett Weatherspoon Rogers in 1998, and together they have been blessed with 7 beautiful children. His wife, Sharetta, is an accomplished professional hairstylist, entrepreneur, and music educator, playing a pivotal role in both his ministry and music career. As a renowned gospel artist, Pastor Timothy Rogers continues to touch souls worldwide with his powerful voice, unmatched devotion, and deep commitment to spreading the gospel. His story is not just a narrative of faith, but a living, breathing testament to the power of perseverance, love, and divine purpose. He communicates themes of hope and redemption via his profession, which skillfully combines music and preaching. At the age of 18, Rogers was called to preach while being mentored by his father at Belleville's Prince of Peace Church. He served as the church's pastor for 12 years following the death of his father. He established the Hope Church in 2016, where he is the senior pastor and SAG of the Saving a Generation ministry, which focuses on reaching a variety of audiences and mentoring believers. Rogers is respected as a Baptist preacher who combines Pentecostal and Baptist elements. He is well known for his energetic preaching style and travels the country giving sermons to people of all denominations. Additionally, he conducts Another Look, a Bible study that reaches people all over the world on Monday nights. In the early 2000s, Rogers started his musical career by forming Tim Rogers and the Fellas, a gospel group that included cousin Troy and siblings Brian and Terry. The trio, who was signed to the Williams Brothers Blackberry label, combined traditional and modern gospel in albums like Change 2009 and Real 2012. In 2015, Rogers released Churchin' with Pastor Tim Rogers as part of his solo career. In addition to appearing on programs like Dr. Bobby Jones' Gospel and Bet's Celebration of Gospel, he has worked with gospel icons including the Williams Brothers, John P. Key, Ty Triett, Leandria Johnson, Kim Burrell, and Calvin Richardson. He started his own label, SAG Music Group, in 2016. Popular songs like Number One Friend, The Lord Will Make a Way, and Count Your Blessings highlight faith and perseverance in his music, which is renowned for its beautiful melodies and storytelling. A Grammy nominee, Rogers is renowned for his genuineness and involvement in the community. He creates a sense of community among his followers by sharing faith-based messages on social media. As of 2024-25, his projected net worth of $1.1 million includes earnings from speaking engagements, music sales, pastoral work, and church-related endeavors. The first is the terrible death of Sharetta Rogers. Significant effect on the community and Pastor Tim Rogers. Pastor Tim Rogers' beloved wife, Sharetta Plett Weatherspoon Rogers, passed away on May 9, 2023, leaving the town of Belleville, Arkansas, and the gospel community in deep sadness. Sharetta passed away at Baptist Health Hospital in Arkansas at the age of 46 after a brief and unknown illness, leaving behind a legacy of compassion, faith, and musical talent that had a profound impact on many people's lives. In addition to devastating her family, her death, which some accounts claim was caused by an unexplained illness, also caused grief to spread throughout the gospel music and church communities. Sharetta Rogers' illness came as a shock to her family and the community. Tim Rogers and the Fellas, Pastor Rogers' gospel group, sent a sincere need for prayers on Facebook on May 3, 2023. Sharetta was admitted to Baptist Health Hospital's Intensive Care Unit (ICU). According to the Post, the message was a call to action for their supporters, requesting divine intervention and strength during a crucial time, even though no specifics regarding her condition were revealed. The request's urgency and the announcement's briefness highlighted how critical Sherida's health was, and it led to a nationwide outpouring of prayers and support from churchgoers, fellow gospel musicians, and fans. Hope endured among Sherida's supporters and loved ones for 6 days. Renowned for his unshakable faith, Pastor Rogers clung to the hope that his wife would recover by relying on the strength of prayer and the encouragement of his community. But Sherida died a few days after the first call for prayers on May 9, 2023. Reports of a mystery disease that neither the family nor medical sources openly discussed were the cause of her death, which remained undisclosed. Many people had to deal with the suddenness of losing such a vivacious and powerful figure, and this lack of clarity only served to heighten the shock and mystery surrounding her departure. Born in Blytheville, Arkansas, on November 9, 1977, Sherida Rogers was much more than just the wife of a well-known gospel musician and preacher. She was a compassionate and talented woman who made incalculable contributions to her community, church, and family. With a degree from the University of Memphis, Sherida was a professional hairstylist, businesswoman, and music educator who brought innovation and commitment to all aspects of her life. She played a crucial role in the ministry. She worked with Pastor Rogers at the Hope Church in Blytheville, where the congregation adored her for her kindness and faith. As a songwriter, she added her distinct viewpoint and artistic talent to Tim Rogers and the Fellas' songs, enhancing their gospel feel. Sherida was renowned for her compassion and friendliness. She was renowned for her capacity to relate to individuals from a wide range of backgrounds and provide enduring support and encouragement. In an impassioned social media tribute, Tiffany Rogers, her daughter, encapsulated this attitude, characterizing her mother as a motivating influence in their community and family. Sherida's impact went beyond the music studio and church. She raised her 7 children: Tamara, Tima, Tiffany, Tiara, Timberly, and Tiwan, with affection and taught them the importance of faith and perseverance. Her 25-year marriage to Pastor Rogers, which started on January 20, 1998, was evidence of their mutual devotion to one another and their shared goal of using music and ministry to preach hope. The gospel community and beyond were rocked by the news of Sherida's death. As fans, friends, and other artists shared their sorrow and appreciation for a woman who had impacted so many lives, tributes were posted on social media in droves. Pastor Rogers and his family received condolences from churches, community organizations, and gospel luminaries who acknowledged the loss of a woman who was not just a ministry partner but also a lighthouse in her own right. Sherida was a pillar of the Blytheville congregation, which lamented the passing of a spiritual leader whose presence had inspired and consoled them. Sherida's family planned a number of memorial events to celebrate her life, reflecting her importance to her loved ones and the community at large. On May 1823, a public viewing took place at Blytheville's Prince of Peace Church, a site rich in the Rogers family's past where Sherida had served and worshipped with her husband. The community was able to pay their respects and participate in the shared pain at the viewing. Hundreds of people came to celebrate Sherida's life at the funeral service, which was held on May 20, 2023 at Chickasaw Arena in Blytheville. There was definitely a lot of prayer, singing, and contemplation on her lasting legacy during the service. However, the ceremony's specifics were not made public. Following Sherida's death, Pastor Tim Rogers had to make the painful choice to postpone all of his May 2023 appointments. He made time to grieve with his children and process the tremendous loss, which included preaching engagements, musical performances, and other ministry-related activities. The choice demonstrated how deeply he was grieving and how important Sherida was to his personal and professional life. This withdrawal from public life was a moving representation of the emptiness left by his wife's disappearance for a man whose life had been characterized by music and public ministry. Even though Pastor Rogers hasn't talked much about his loss in public, his children's and the community's tributes showed how deeply Sherida's passing affected them. In particular, his daughter Tiffany's social media message emphasized Sherida's role as a guiding influence and the deep impact her mother's death had on the family. The passing of Sherida posed a personal challenge for Rogers, a man whose sermons and songs have long focused on themes of hope, redemption, and resilience. His ministry and music, which are already emotionally charged, have probably gained further depth as he works through this grieving process. The second is the deep effect of Pastor Tim Rogers and his family and the death of Sharetta Rogers. The Rogers family, who had centered their lives on a common dedication to music, faith, and community, suffered a terrible blow with Chara Rogers passing. In addition to being lifelong spouses, Shia and Pastor Rogers worked together in ministry and music, ministering together at the Hope Church and contributing to the gospel group Tim Rogers and the Fellas. They were married for more than 25 years. As a mother to their 7 children, she played an equally important part in shaping their beliefs and goals by creating a loving and religiously motivated environment. After Sharetta died, the family had to deal with an unfathomable hole, struggling to cope with the loss of a mother who, according to their daughter Tiffany, was a motivating factor. Pastor Rogers and his kids went through a very deep and intimate period of bereavement. Although Rogers has not publicly discussed his loss much, preferring to deal with his grief in private, his kids have provided social media updates that provide a window into the family's emotional state. Tiffany's tribute, which emphasized her mother's indispensable role in their lives, particularly conveyed the depth of their shared suffering. These heartfelt and aching posts show a family pulling together in their loss and supporting one another. Each of the Rogers children, who varied in age and stage of life, had to balance their grief and respect for their mother's legacy, a process that highlighted how close-knit their family was. Pastor Tim Rogers is well known for his ability to incorporate themes of resiliency, hope, and redemption into both his gospel music and sermons. His work as the lead vocalist of Tim Rogers and the Fellas and the senior pastor of the Hope Church has encouraged innumerable others to find courage in their faith in the face of adversity. These themes have gained a deeper and more intimate resonance after Sharetta's passing, which is evidence of Rogers' own grieving process. The emotional impact of his wife's death is evident in the development of his creative and spiritual output. Even though he has not specifically addressed it in public remarks, Rogers' music has long served as a medium for expressing faith in the face of hardship because of its poignant storytelling and soulful melodies. Songs like Count Your Blessings, The Lord Will Make a Way, and Number One Friend convey a message of tenacity and supernatural assistance, themes that have perhaps gained even more importance since Sharetta's death. Rogers has probably found that making and performing music has been a cathartic outlet for him, enabling him to transform his sorrow into works of art that inspire others. As the anguish of personal loss infuses his music with a raw authenticity that relates to the human experience of sorrow and recovery, fans and listeners may detect a heightened emotional intensity in his performances. Rogers' sermons have also gained depth as a result of his own experience with severe loss. Rogers is well known for his lively and Baptist preaching style, which combines Pentecostal and Baptist elements. He has a talent for inspiring audiences with words of resiliency and hope. His empathy for people going through their own hardships has probably grown as a result of Sharetta's tragic demise, which has allowed him to talk more authentically about the anguish of loss. There may now be hints of his own path in his well-watched Monday night Bible study. Another look, which provides insights into how faith may help one get through life's most trying times. As Rogers balances his role as a public leader with his personal pain, preaching and singing have evolved into both acts of ministry and acts of survival. The Rogers family's close-knit bond was highlighted by the sorrow of Sharetta's death. They have supported one another and their common religion through this difficult time. A source of fortitude in the face of loss has been the family's oneness, which is based on years of worshiping, performing, and serving together. Using the same spiritual teachings he has been preaching for decades, Pastor Rogers has probably been instrumental in helping his children navigate their grief as the patriarch. This tragedy has tested and confirmed the connectivity of the Rogers clan, as evidenced by the involvement of family members, including siblings and cousins. With Tim Rogers and the Fellas, the Rogers family has received an overwhelming amount of support from their local and international communities, in addition to their immediate family. Sharetta was a cherished member of the Hope Church's Baalath congregation, which has come together to support the family with condolences, prayers, and helpful advice. With tributes coming in from all over the nation, the gospel music community, which includes both musicians and fans, has also been instrumental. This broad support demonstrates the influence of Sharetta's life and the regard that Pastor Rogers' ministry has earned. The community was given the chance to participate in the family's loss by holding a public viewing and funeral on May 18, and May 20, 2023, respectively. This strengthened the feeling of solidarity and collective mourning. The third is the theological division caused by the controversy around Pastor Tim Rogers' 2018 comments about hell. Pastor Tim Rogers has established himself as a vibrant and thought-provoking spiritual leader. He is well known for his dynamic Baptist preaching style, which combines Pentecostal and Baptist traditions. His sermons, which frequently combine scripture interpretation with practical application, strike a chord with a variety of audiences because they are frequently given with conviction and emotion. Leading the Hope Church and singing with his gospel ensemble, Tim Rogers and the Fellas. Rogers was already well known in the gospel field by 2018. Through his music, which conveyed messages of hope and redemption, and his Monday night Bible study, Another Look, he reached audiences all around the world, extending his influence beyond the pulpit. The contentious comments were made at a burial ceremony, where pastors are supposed to provide consolation and insight into the beyond. Funerals frequently cause people to consider their eternal fate, so Rogers' decision to question the idea of hell is especially thought-provoking. Given this, it was shocking when he said that hell is a fairy tale, much like Santa Claus, a cultural icon that is generally accepted to be a work of fiction. By drawing a comparison between a fundamental Christian principle and a popular myth, Rogers positioned himself as a provocateur who was prepared to challenge established ideas. His further claim that hell is what you create implied that pain should no longer be viewed as a punishment from God in the afterlife, but rather as a result of human behavior in this life, particularly within the evangelical and Pentecostal traditions that predominate in a large portion of the African American church. Rogers' views marked a substantial break from conventional Christian theology. According to the traditional understanding of hell, which has its roots in biblical verses like Matthew 25:46 and Revelation 20:15. It is a real realm of perpetual agony for people who disobey God. For centuries, this idea has been a pillar of Christian belief, both as a deterrent to immorality and an inspiration for evangelization. Rogers joined a small group of progressive theologians that challenge or reframed the idea of hell as a fairy tale, frequently prioritizing God's mercy and love over judgment. However, Rogers' acceptance of heaven and the afterlife suggests that his comments were a selective critique of the conventional depiction of hell rather than a complete denial of Christian eschatology. He implies that misery and destruction are the result of human decisions and deeds in this life, rather than a punishment that is predetermined by God in the next, when he says that hell is what you create. This viewpoint is in line with existential and liberation theologies, which emphasize the effects of individual choices and structural injustice in the modern world. Rogers challenged his audience to think about how their acts affect their lives and communities by presenting hell as a human invention, shifting the emphasis from eternal punishment to earthly responsibilities. Rogers' strategy clearly reflects the influence of Pastor Frank E. Ray, a preacher from Memphis who was well known for his audacious and unorthodox sermons. Rogers' mentor, Ray, has also pushed the envelope in the African American church by fusing social criticism with conventional preaching. Ray's legacy of challenging established conventions while maintaining a strong religious foundation is seen in Rogers' readiness to examine the notion of hell. Because of this mentorship, Rogers had the theological assurance to express a non-traditional position, even if it meant offending certain members of his audience. Rogers' comments caused a rapid and divisive response, sparking a flurry of discussion among Christians. Many conservative Christians saw Rogers' rejection of hell as a fairy tale to be heretical, especially in the evangelical and Pentecostal sects. His remarks, according to his detractors, diminished the significance of salvation and called into question the authority of Scripture, thus misguiding believers. Theological debates broke out on social media sites where Rogers' sermon videos were shared, with critics charging him of sacrificing fundamental Christian principles in order to gain attention or fame. Others, on the other hand, thought Rogers' comments were brave and novel. His focus on God's compassion and human responsibility was praised by both progressive Christians and those fed up with fear-based preaching. His reconstruction of hell as a human-created reality, according to his supporters, was consistent with a more socially conscious and compassionate theology that places a higher value on justice and redemption than on punishment. For these people, Rogers' readiness to question a theory that is frequently employed to inspire dread was a daring step toward a faith that elevates rather than condemns. Thus, the dispute brought to light a wider split within Christianity between progressives who support contextual and metaphorical readings of Scripture and traditionalists who maintain literal interpretations. Rogers' audience's cultural and denominational quirks were also highlighted in the debate. Rogers, an African-American pastor working in a Baptist context, traverses a religious terrain influenced by both emotional expressiveness and theological rigor. It's possible that his funeral-related words were meant to console a community in mourning, changing the perception of death from a possible plunge into hell to a journey to heaven. But the wider social media distribution of his remarks increased their impact and exposed them to criticism from a range of Christian viewpoints. The life of Pastor Tim Rogers is a mosaic of perseverance, faith, and music. His ministry and gospel music have impacted numerous people, from his early days in Bullyville to his leadership of Tim Rogers and the Fellas and the Hope Church. Along with past scandals, the devastating death of his wife Sherida in 2023 put his faith to the test and influenced his writing, giving it a deep emotional depth. While facing personal tragedy with grace and integrity, Rogers continues to be a beacon of hope, mentoring believers and producing music that heals and uplifts.